We don't have to throw statistics at you to back up the fact that the cost of living continues to rise. For many of us, that means maybe cutting back on some of our favorite items or buying off-brand products. For others, it can mean the difference between having a place to call home or sleeping in a car, or even worse, outside.
It is a problem a group of community members noticed and then took action. That action has turned into a place that has given hundreds of people a fresh start toward a better future. Well, I recently visited Talbot Interfaith Shelter in Easton to see how they're expanding that mission. It was a chance encounter 15 years ago.
I saw a guy out at the picnic table. He looked really, depressed, and he had his dog there. And I'm thinking, I need to talk to this guy and find out what's going on.
That conversation was part of a series of events that led Julie Lowe on an altruistic journey of life-changing proportions.
It was actually a very competent carpenter. He had done a serpentine wooden fence on a design project that I did in my landscaping company. And he stated that he had fallen on hard times, he had to sell his tools, he was living in his truck, and he was looking for help.
At the same time, a fellow congregant of her church voiced her concern about how many homeless people came to the church looking for help.
It's a very affluent community, and this is kind of a hidden thing going on.
Talbot Interfaith Shelter began in 2009 as a rotating church-based cold weather homeless shelter.
And we were open just in the evening, and we could only house 5 people at a time because of a fire code restriction.
In 2014, an opportunity to purchase a bed and breakfast on Goldsboro Street became available.
It was perfect. It was like turnkey for us. It was 5 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms.
The idea of turning this bed and breakfast into a homeless shelter was challenged in court by people living in the neighborhood. But eventually the purchase was completed, and Easton's Promise, as they call it, became a family shelter.
But then in 2021, we realized we need more space. We are having a lot more individuals apply. And this house that we're in right now came up for sale right next door to Easton's Promise. So we said, what providence? Mm-hmm. So we purchased it. We did not have any public outcry at the meetings for the special exception permit, which is just a testament to we did what we said we would do. We kept a safe house. We kept a tidy house.
Today, Talbot Interfaith Shelter is so much more than a place for a hot meal and a warm bed.
So we would identify a need that people would have. First is certainly shelter, and then there were things like the ID cards and that type of thing. But then we realized people didn't really know how to save money. People needed to have better jobs. So we started all kinds of programming to help people to expand their knowledge.
As the programs grew, more and more people were transitioning from homelessness to self-sufficiency. It's a mission summed up with something called S4, Shelter, Stability, Support, and Success.
We have case managers for each person. We have a case manager for the family house. We have a case manager for the singles house, and we have a case manager for our transitional housing. Because when people have saved up their money and we feel that they're stabilized emotionally, mentally, physically, and monetarily, we invite them into these transitional apartments where we subsidize half of the rent to begin with, and then gradually increase that over time so that at the end of 2 years, they're paying the full rent of what we pay for those apartments.
Julie says getting families back on their feet takes a little more time and effort.
Because to get the subsidy from the state, you have to have a job and you have to have worked that job for 2 paychecks. How do you do that if you have children that aren't in daycare? So we asked our supporters to help us with this fund. And so we are able to pay several weeks of childcare so people can get the job and get the documentation of the income that they have and access that childcare subsidy.
That support from the community is key to Talbot Interfaith Shelter carrying on its mission.
We don't really take any government funds because the government's pet right now is rapid rehousing. And that means you take in anybody off the street, whether they're using drugs, using alcohol, have severe mental health problems, you house them and then you work on those things.
Everyone in the houses is required to pitch in. A chore chart lays out who does what. Breakfast and lunch is prepared by the residents. Dinner is provided by volunteers. The programs, for the most part, are working, getting folks back on their feet and into a productive life.
Sometimes people don't embrace the program, and that's very frustrating to us. We offer you free housing, free food, all of these classes to better yourself, and yet they're resistant. And we kind of scratch our heads as to why that is, but it's the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Talbot Interfaith Shelter continues to expand. They just purchased another property in downtown Easton that will provide up to 17 more transitional housing units, something Julie chalks up to divine providence.
When we sort of seek something, it shows up, not immediately, but I say just keep your head down, it'll come when we're ready, and it always does. And I think this property is another case in point. We have an option now to serve more people while we're in that process.
A process that provides the tools and support necessary to soar into self-sufficiency. And Talbot Interfaith Shelter serves all 5 counties of the Midshore, including Talbot, Caroline, Dorchester, Kent, and Queen Anne's.
That is absolutely incredible.
It is.
Wow. How about that? Okay.